So I think my struggling to find the words and find where I wanted to go is a good example of why that I just had like before you were talking then is that that's a good way. It's because my mind's too open. I'm going in way too many directions. And this is what I mean when I said like it's like a cloud in my mind because I'm getting pulled from one direction to another. But at a certain point in time, you have to make a decision in the practical world. Okay, you got the camera on you, you got a mic in front of you, you got to say something. What are you going to say? And the problem is if you get too lost in an open mind, you never pick one of those things. And so you just get pulled from left to right and you don't know exactly where to go with it. So even though, yeah, it kind of feels rough to sit there and to be trying to, lock it down, it's still, it helped to highlight, okay, that's kind of why it's good to have both at a time. Because to me, I'm more default on the open-mindedness. I'm more default on listening to people's opinions, listening to hearing a whole bunch of different things and only making a decision after I've heard enough information. And the problem with that is it works perfectly fine when you're not pressured to do anything, but when you're pressured to make a decision and go in a certain direction, that's when you want to be a little bit closed-minded. And that's why for myself, I like to take things slow, make sure I've thought about it beforehand, and then have a bit of an idea at least of where I'm going. And like you said there, when you're closed-minded, when you're like, okay, this is my talking points, this is where I'm going, it's a lot less energy intense. You can just say, okay, this is the direction, this is where I'm going. Whereas if you're sitting there trying to figure out, okay, where do I want to go with this? What am I trying to say here? It's a lot more energy intensive because you're in your mind, you're going down certain paths and then you're stopping yourself and you're going back and you're picking a different path and you're doing like 10 steps to try and figure out, okay, is this going to end where I want it to end? Or at some point you just need to say, it doesn't matter if it ends where I want it to end. You just have to make that decision and go with it.
Yeah, I would say that it has a direct relationship with the amount of focus you have. So when you said it's like a sea of soup, or a cloud. Yeah, I can understand that because there's a whole lot of facts floating around in your head. You're going off in a whole lot of directions, but you can't actually, the difficulty with an open mind is you try not to focus on one thing. The whole point is to be able to have a broad overview of a lot of different things. And but when you need to make a decision, you need to focus. So there's a point in time when, you can't focus on much if your mind is always open. So that's where the closed-minded state comes in well. You can focus on what needs to be done. So, I mean, I know I'm going back to the religious thing, but I think it's a really good example because if I've made the decision I believe in a particular religion, now I know what to focus on. Now it's just a series of steps. I go do, I make sure I follow these 10 rules, or I go to church and pray on the weekend or whatever it is. It now gives me a clear indication of the task that I'm going to do. And from those tasks, you get a reward. There's a feeling reward. So an open mind is I think it's a kind of uncomfortable state. It means that people are left with not being able to focus on a particular thing. And when they can't focus on something, they can't do a task and get a reward in return. So maybe the reward of an open mind is not up front. A reward of a closed mind is up front in that when you have a closed mind, you've got to focus, you can do a task, you get an outcome. When you get an open mind, it's very difficult to do that.